Hello and welcome to Happy Cells and Souls. My name is Julie Powers and I'm a licensed Zumba instructor and I'm an affiliate with the Juice Plus company. And my missions in life are to help people understand that life is better when you're dancing through it and to inspire healthy living around the world. But my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. We have one body while we're here on this earth, and we need to take care of it in the best ways possible. And while we're here, we should be happy and joyful and spread a little light and love into this world. And so I get to talk to people in these videos that I believe bring that joy, bring the happiness, bring the light and love, or they just have really cool, interesting stories to share. And my guest today is Cyndi James, and she pretty much checks all those boxes because she brings so much light and love into the world. And she's a really good friend. We have so much in common. And I met Cyndi through the Juice Plus company, and she and I both share these missions, right? But she has such a cool backstory that I wanted you to be able to share a little bit of your story. It would take hours, hours and hours and hours to tell the world even a portion of your story. So we're just going to do this tiny little tip of the iceberg. So Cyndi, tell us a little bit about you and where you grew up, which is so cool, and all of your life adventures before you ended up where you are today as part of the Kansas City Ballet Guild and all of these cool things that, I love dance so much.
Right. And you do. And you do bring joy. That smile of yours is so contagious. It really is. Love it. So actually, I was born in Paris, and my father was in the State Department, a diplomat. And so my sister and I were born in Paris, and then my father was transferred back to Washington, D.C., which is home base. So that's where the State Department is. And that's where I ended up growing up. Now, my mother and father divorced, and my father went on to be stationed in Southeast Asia, and then also eventually in France. And every single summer, my sister and I, we had to go visit my dad wherever he was in the world. And, when I think back now, that I would be kind of going, wow, do we have to go? It's like, oh my gosh, what a great
great adventure, right?
Oh yeah. And then of course, once we got there, wherever it was, once it was in Burma, for example, a summer in Burma when I was 9 years old, and it's Myanmar now. But I remember it so well. And it was an entire June, July, and August, all 3 months in Southeast Asia. We went to Thailand and Hong Kong and all these places. And, we would come back and just go, wow, what an adventure. And then France, that was great too. And so every single summer I went there. So I had a little gypsy bug in me, huh?
Your dad was in the State Department. So did you ever do anything like with the official events? Were you part of any of that, or were you very separated from that?
Oh, we had to tag along with my dad. So he was making speeches, all over the place, or attending ambassador parties or whatever. And so, oh no, we were little diplomatic daughters, and
very good.
Heard of army brats. Well, we were diplomat, State Department brats.
Got it.
But for the main part of the year, I was in Washington, D.C., and that's where I grew up. And then I got involved in ballet. I started ballet when I was 7 years old. I think it was my father who took me to see Swan Lake, and that was it for me. I had a choice between piano and ballet, and I told my mom ballet, So, and I was fortunate because we lived very close by to the Washington School of Ballet, which was one of the best schools for ballet in DC. So that was where I started all my classes, and eventually was a day student. In other words, they had an academy where you had school in the morning and danced in the afternoon, all under one roof. And we had dormitories and boarders from all over the country. So I did that, and I was asked to join that in 7th grade. So that was all my junior high and high school years there.
What an interesting experience for that time of life, to be so completely engrossed in the thing that you love so much and still be able to do your studies and all of the other classwork. I'm sure that you met some really fascinating people along the way. And if you have any interesting anecdotal stories you want to share about that, that's great. But if you want to talk about whenever you ended up getting involved professionally, in dance. And then how did you end up in the Kansas City, Missouri area?
Roundabout. As I said,
Roundabout. You had to go all over the world again.
yeah,
So
well, and so I have that little gypsy bug in me. And when I was young, I was just always saying yes, to things. But as far as dance was concerned, I had knee issues. Cartilage underneath my kneecaps was non-existent. And so I segued during my junior and senior year in high school. I was thinking about segueing into musical theater, into acting. That would be getting me off point shoes and helping me kind of get through the injuries that I was going through. So on the weekends, I did acting classes and all of that. So once I graduated, I ended up going very briefly to Boston Conservatory of Music and then to New York City. And that's where I was doing commercials and children's theater and everything. So I pretty much stopped ballet at that point, but I always taught it. And, once this kind of art, as you said, we were so passionate. Once you have this passion for something like that, it doesn't leave you,
No.
And so I've always just, my heart's been with the ballet. It really always has. So anyway, I ended up in Australia for a spell, and that was really great. And then Colorado.
You acted there. You were in commercials in Australia. So
yes,
for a period of time, you were a commercial celebrity in Down Under.
I was in a lot of TV commercials. I did a lot of children's theater too. I did an English accent. I could not get that Australian accent down really well when I lived there, or I thought I did, but they knew that I wasn't really Australian,
I think I told you that when I lived in Australia, I worked somewhere that I would answer the phone and I literally just said the name of the business and hello. And the first words out of the other person's mouth would be, "Are you American or Canadian?" It didn't matter how I said it. They saw right through me, right?
Oh, no. But anyway, I forgot about that. That's right. I know exactly where you were in Melbourne and everything. So anyway, so I lived in Australia for a while and then wound up living in France in Monaco, which was very cool. And I was actually working. Well, I know, but I was a hardworking girl, I mean, it sounds so fancy, but it's like I was, lived in a tiny little studio, and I was a fitness director of this American owned spa that was part of the big hotel there in Monaco. And so I had a staff, and we taught aerobics and water aerobics and, all of that.
Now, you weren't teaching, were you? Because you had a cartilage issue from your knee.
You know what, though? That was okay. Yeah. As long as I was warmed up and everything, I was good. And it was, years ago, and I was very young and all that. So yeah.
Oh yeah, back those years ago, I remember those.
Yeah, ancient history. I know. But anyway, it was great. And my dad also lived there at the time too. So it was really a nice way to be close to him. Right. And so it was wonderful. I mean, when you live in France, your backyard is Italy or Spain or, just a plane ride wherever, or up to Paris or something. So it was great. But I'm an American girl and I wanted to get back to America, and I was single, and I thought, so I ended up in Southern California where my sister was living. And I worked as a head concierge at La Costa Hotel. And that's where I met Paul James, who became my husband. And then from there, we moved to Steamboat Springs for 4 years. We got married up there and had our first child up there. And then he was offered a job in Kansas City at the Marriott downtown. And I was like, Kansas?
Like, no, I'm not Dorothy. I'm not going there.
Never in a million years did I think I'd end up in Kansas.
Because you pretty much lived in coastal areas your entire life, and then all of a sudden this new husband of yours wants to plunk you down in the Midwest.
Goodbye, city life. Remember in Green Acres?
Yeah, for sure.
It's totally like that. And I thought, I wonder if people like have hair curlers in their hair and tumbleweeds going down the road. But I was so delightfully surprised, and I love Kansas City. I've been here now 25 years, so it's definitely home. And and I just love it. And this is where we raised our boys, and it's just such a great place. Salt to the earth people. I have wonderful friends. Fortunately, my boys still live nearby, and so I'm here to stay, as far as I'm concerned. So
you got a good place. You got a good place to live, because Kansas City really is just a jewel in the Midwest. Yes. It really is. And when I lived there, I loved living there. And I never lived in Kansas, though.
Oh, you're a Missouri girl, huh?
I'm a Missouri girl. So
I know. And people are like, where do you live? In Kansas, or, and it's like, no, we're really on the state line.
Right.
And there is a road called State Line.
I know. I lived right there by it on the Missouri side. So funny. And then in Kansas City, you're raising these boys, and you went to the Kansas City Ballet.
Yes. And I did. I love the ballet, right? And I actually was teaching ballet here in a small studio. So ballet's never left me, ever. And I went to go see Swan Lake. And this is years ago. And I thought, well, it's a regional company. It's going to be okay or whatever. And I was blown away. And you can really usually judge a good company by its corps de ballet, because everybody has to be in line and in perfect unison. And that's hard. I mean, they make it look easy, but it is really hard.
Just let me interject for just a second, because somebody might be watching this that has no idea what you're talking about. Corps de ballet. It's like the Rockettes, but it's ballet, and it's the ballet steps. It's not the high kick rocket thing, but they're all doing the same thing at the same time. And it's very difficult. It's very challenging.
And there's 25, 30, sometimes 40 dancers out there, and they all are dressed the same. They all look exactly the same. Their arms are placed, their head, the way their head, everything
The fingers have to be exactly
image. Right. 1 foot out of line, and it could ruin the whole thing.
It's very noticeable. So you got I find it really cool that your very first experience with ballet was Swan Lake. And that's the one that put you into this mode of wanting to take ballet classes. And then your first experience in Kansas City with the Kansas City Ballet was Swan Lake.
Yes.
And both of them were equally impactful in your life. So okay.
So let's wow, Kansas City Ballet
this some more.
The map for me.
Yes.
I was so impressed. And I thought, well, I need to be coming to more performances. And then it was a few years, because I was raising boys and doing all of that. I wasn't involved at all in, the guild or anything. Right. And the guild is like Friends of, it's an organization that helps, it advocates ballet and supports the ballet. We do 2 big fundraisers, but it was a couple of friends in my neighborhood that were involved. And they said, Cyndi, this is right up your alley. You've got to get involved, and finally I said, yes. And I haven't looked back since. I mean, it was only about 5 or 6 years ago I joined. And then I was just installed as their president this past week. So I'll be their president for a year. It's just a year's tenure.
So whenever this gets published, it will be later. You will have already been a seasoned president of the guild. And
not really, because it's July, I guess, when you said it's going to be published. So a couple of months. I mean, hey, I have the gavel and everything.
You have the gavel. You are very official. So yes, and so you are one of the ballet's biggest supporters, and you promote it, and a lot of the dancers. And I know that something that you and I have talked about in the past is how you love these dancers so much. They all have such fascinating stories, and they are so absolutely focused, so determined, so passionate about what they're doing with their art. But one of the things that you have also seen is how important it is for them to take care of themselves. And I know that you had that as part of your personal story. And can you tell us a little bit about that part of it? Whatever you want to, bring into that.
Right. Well, from a personal standpoint, when you're a dancer and everything, we know, well, we think food is fuel, but I mean, we all try to be very thin. And as a young dancer, I was anorexic a couple of times in my life, like a lot of my
many ballerinas are anorexic or bulimic.
Yeah. And it really affects your performance. I mean, it does. I mean, I used to be a great jumper, and I remember hardly being able to get off the floor.
Mm.
And I couldn't think right either. It was brain fog, that kind of thing.
Right.
But so many years later, when I learned more about nutrition and how food is fuel and it runs your body, I mean, to me, that's just like basic knowledge.
Yeah.
But really, folks, you really, truly are.
It really does matter.
And then I learned that, we are like a fireplace, and we are burning energy all the time. And that energy, that metabolism, if you will, there's a byproduct from that burning, and that's free radicals. And those are the bad guys. They're roaming around our body.
Yep.
Okay. And so inflammation, joint pain, all that kind of stuff is free radical attacking, your body. Free radicals. So to neutralize those, we need good nutrition. And where does that come from? It doesn't come from the Big Mac. It doesn't come from, a grape juice or something. It comes from really raw fruits and vegetables. And it was, to me, it's like that's so, nutrition 101. It's like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. But the problem is that we don't eat enough of the good stuff. We're not putting that in. So once I started to do that with concentrated plant powders, because honestly, I like fruits and veggies, but I tend to eat the same ones. And I think that's pretty much most of us.
Right.
Except for somebody, I just love beets. It's like, okay, what else?
I was just talking about beets a few minutes before this call. I'm like, nope, I don't really care for beets. I can do roasted beets, but
well, honey, I'm worse than I hate beets, and kale and everything. And there's some things I really love, and some things I'm sorry, never pass these lips. But I did find that Juice Plus stuff that we're talking about 21 years ago, almost 22 years ago. And I'm not going to go into that, but it just made total sense. And It was great to throw these plant powders into my body. And I noticed right away things like energy and all of that. And talk about knees. I don't have the knee issues anymore. I'm an old bag. It's like I just don't
We're
have
not an old bag.
Well,
you know what? And you're right. This isn't a Juice Plus video, but I think it's so important for people to understand, like ballerinas, ballet dancers, male and female, they are athletes. That's athletes.
Right. And as an athlete, you are creating more free radicals. You're burning up more. So you have to eat better than the average Joe.
Eat the best possible food. Like eat as many salads as possible. Eat as many roasted vegetables as possible. Raw vegetables, everything, and all the fruits and berries and whole grains and all the plants. All the
plants. Yeah. And so it's amazing because for those people that do that, they they don't get sick as often. Because why? All of those good things help your immune system, and so and injury prevention, people don't correlate that either. But again, it's like everything works better no matter what's going on. Improved nutrition is going to help. And so, I'm just a real nut about all of it. I just love the well, and
it's not about it. It just, like it's just one of those things that when we know something really good, we want to make sure everybody knows it. And
and I don't tell people or anything a lot of times and everything, but I know those dancers that do take care of themselves, and they have the staying power. They're always out there, and they don't get sick as often and everything. So but hats off to these dancers. So I was grateful and honored enough to be it's called a supernumerary, which is like a walk-on part in Giselle with the Kansas City Ballet last season.
Yes, I remember you talking
earlier this season, I should say, in October. And it was such an honor, and I got to know the dancers. We're joking around backstage and everything like that. So that was just a treat. And right before then, though, the COVID and all of that, these dancers had to be masked and doing their classes full out. No complaints.
It's a lot to be able to breathe through that.
Here we are, whining if we have to put our mask on, in the grocery store. I mean, these were athletes with having to have masks on. So hats off. I just have to mention
that's amazing. So we have like 1 minute left of this conversation, and I would just love for you to share anything that you feel like you want to share with the world, or the 10 people who happen to watch this.
You know what? I think I will end with I found a quote. And people have always said, and I have friends from high school that I graduated with, and I look at this group and it's like, wow, we've always been about 110 in our 110% in our life, anything that we do, and it has to come from that dance background. There's that discipline that carries through in every single thing you do, for the rest of your life. So anyway, should I read this quote?
Sure, yeah.
I don't know who wrote it. It appeared, I guess on Facebook or something, but I love it. So, being a dancer will never end because the lessons you learned in that studio stretch a lifetime's worth. You learned how to take a compliment, but you knew that you could always do better. You learned how to take constructive criticism and how to come back from a loss. You learned that it is okay to take up all the space that you need and not to ever apologize for giving it your all. And you are taught how to stand up with your chin held high, even if your heart is sinking low. Those things, they can't be taken away from you.
I love it.
I do
love
too.
It, love it. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing just a tiny little bit of your life with all of these fabulous people that found us here in this little space, this little space on the internet and social media. And thank you for being such a light in the world, and continue bringing your smile and your joy. And love you so much, Cyndi.
Love you too, Julie. Thank you so much.